Self-practice 7.2a number 1. The frequency table below shows the electricity bills of apartment units for a certain month. Electricity bill, ringgit Malaysia. That is a unit for electricity bill. Frequency is number of apartments unit. So as you can see, we will copy down these two first, and we will add one column whereby the frequency must be 0. This is how we do the cumulative table every time we want to draw and or give. So the upper boundary, you can shift the upper limit, but you must plus 0.5. Okay. And the cumulative frequency starting is 0. 0 plus 4, you will get 4. Keep on adding. 4 plus 9 is equal to 13. 13 plus 11 is equal to 24. 24 plus 15 is equal to 39. And finally, 39 plus 13 is equal to 52. Right. Explain the meaning of the range and interquartile range obtained. So the range is the midpoint of the highest class interval minus the midpoint of the lowest class interval. Now let's press the calculator, and the answer is 8080. So explain the meaning of the range. The range means the difference between the highest electricity bill and the lowest electricity bill is ringgit Malaysia 80 ringgit. So we have construct the cumulative frequency table and also find the range and explain the range. Now we need to draw and or give. Now let's refer to the cumulative frequency. Use the graph, draw the vertical axis and label cumulative frequency, and also label the electricity bill in ringgit Malaysia for the upper boundary for the horizontal axis, and the title of the graph is electricity bills. So let's label the axis and the scale for cumulative frequency and also for the upper boundary. So let's do it carefully and make sure you label accordingly. Now let's plot the point. Use a dot, plot the point by reading the upper boundary and the cumulative frequency. For the OGIF, we use upper boundary and cumulative frequency to plot the point and connect all the points using the curve. We want to find out the interquartile range obtained. So first of all, we need to find the third quartile. 3/4 times total is 52. So we will get 39. Right, then we will go to the cumulative frequency, find the 39th, and then draw the horizontal line, touches the OGIF, and then read down vertically to the upper boundary. So we get the answer is 109.5. Now let's find out the first quartile is 1/4 times the total, which is 52. So we get 13th. The 13th cumulative frequency let's draw the horizontal line and read down to the upper boundary, and the first quartile is 69.5. So the answer is 69.5. Now we are going to find the interquartile range. Interquartile range can be found using the third quartile, 109.5 minus 69.5. So the answer is 0.40. So we need to explain the meaning of the interquartile range. Interquartile range means, okay, let's copy down the definition. For interquartile range, interquartile range equal to 40 means the difference between the highest electricity bill and the lowest electricity bill. In the middle, 50% of the distribution is ringgit Malaysia 40. Again, this is very important keywords, lies in the middle, 50% of the distribution is ringgit Malaysia 40 ringgit. Question number 2, calculate the variance and standard deviation of each of the following data. Give your answer correct to 2 decimal places. 2 decimal places. First of all, we need to find a midpoint for the every class interval. So let's find out together. The first midpoint is 1.5. 1 plus 2 divided by 2. Or you can say 1 plus 0.5. So hence, the second one will be 3 plus 0.5, 3.5. 5 plus 0.5 will be 5.5, 7.5, 9.5, and the last one is 11.5. That is another way of finding the midpoint. Or else you can plus and divide by 2. Or you can plus the size of the class. So how to find the mean? The mean is actually we must take the frequency times the midpoint plus another frequency times the midpoint, and so on and so forth, over total frequency 15 plus 20 plus 28 plus 35 plus 30 plus 24 is equal to 7.0395. Now we will find variance. Variance is sum of the frequency times the midpoint square over sum of the frequency minus the mean square. So we can use a mean just now. Right, so let's draw a long line so that we can write the frequency times with the midpoint square, 1 by 1, and plus summation of the frequency times the midpoint square. Meaning that we will take 15 times 1.5 square plus 20 times 3.5 square plus 28 times 5.5 square plus 35 times 7.5 square plus 30 times 9.5 square plus 24 times 11.5 square over the total frequency 15 plus 20 plus 28 plus 35 plus 30 plus 24. So that is how we find the variance. Please remember that is frequency times with the midpoint square. Midpoint only square. Frequency no square, right? We need to minus with the mean just now, 7.0395 square, mean square. So we have to minus the mean 7.0395 just now. We need to square it, square the mean. Okay, that is how you work out for the variance. It's a very troublesome. Variance means very troublesome, right? Very long. So please do it very, very careful. Again, I highlight to you is the sum means we plus frequency times with the midpoint square. Remember, bracket the midpoint and square. If not, you will do a careless mistake. Alright, it doesn't mean that midpoint times the frequency square. It means that you have to times the midpoint square only. Please double check and do not make careless mistake. The answer is 9.4984 for the variance. Right? Once you got the variance, you can square root it to get the standard deviation. But if the question asks for variance, you don't square root. Alright, so that is how you solve the variance in 2 decimal places. So let's round up to 2 decimal places, which is 9.50. Please follow the instruction given. 2 decimal places, answer must be accurate as 2 decimal places, and we are going to square root 9.4934 to get the standard deviation. So the standard deviation also must be in 2 decimal places. So the answer for the standard deviation is 3.08. Now let's move on to question number 2. Calculate the variance and standard deviation of each of the following data. Give your answer correct to 2 decimal places. Let's add 1 row for the midpoint, and let's start with finding the first midpoint. 11 plus 20 divided by 2, so the answer is 15.5. 15.5 is the first midpoint. Now the difference between 15.5 and 11 is 4.5, right? So we are going to plus 4.5 to 21, so become 25.5. 31 plus 4.5 will get 35.5. Or you can say each of the midpoint you plus 10, right? Instead of plus 4.5, you can take 35.5 plus 10, 45.5. That is how I do. I prefer to plus 10, 55.5. You can also do plus 4.5, up to you. So 55.5 plus 10, it will be 65.5. And the last midpoint will be 75.5. Plus 10 is easier than you plus 4.5, right? So we have many alternative way to do. So you can just plus the size of the class for every midpoint. Now we are going to find the mean. So the mean is we will take the frequency times with the midpoint 1 by 1 and plus summation. Summation means plus 5 times 15.5 plus 8 times 25.5 plus 13 times 35.5 plus 20 times 45.5 plus 22 times 55.5 plus 21 times 65.5 plus 11 times 75.5, and we draw a long line to divide with the total frequency, which is 5 plus 8 plus 13 plus 20 plus 22 plus 21 plus 11. So the mean is 50.8, 50.8. Let's find the variance, which is very, very long formula, right? So we need to be very careful when we do variance. Let's take the frequency times with the midpoint alone, square. Midpoint only, square. Alright, and we plus with another midpoint and the square times the frequency. Draw a long line. 5 times 15.5 square plus 8 times 25.5 square plus 13 times 35.5 square plus 20 times 45.5 square plus 22 times 55.5 square plus 21 times 65.5 square plus 11 times 75.5 square. Remember to put bracket to show that only midpoint square over the total frequency, which is 5 plus 8 plus 13 plus 20 plus 22 plus 21 plus 11. So we have to minus the mean square, minus 50.8 square, right? Every time when we do variance, we need to be very, very careful. And remember that it's frequency only times the midpoint square. Don't square the frequency, okay? So the variance is 266.91. This is the answer for variance, 266.91. So we have solved the variance. From the variance, we can find the standard deviation easily. We just square root the variance to get 266.91. So the answer that you get must be correct to 2 decimal places. So the answer for the standard deviation is 6.34. 16.34 is the standard deviation for this question. So I hope that you will do very careful for the variance. That's all my sharing for today. Bye bye and have a nice day.